Get ready to delve into the darkest corners of humanity as we uncover the chilling final wishes of death row inmates. In this spine-tingling video, we unveil the most disturbing last requests ever recorded, revealing the haunting desires that lingered in the minds of those facing the ultimate punishment. Brace yourself for a journey into the macabre and unsettling world of the condemned. John Henry Ramirez, accompanied by a woman, committed a heinous act in 2004 as he mercilessly stabbed and killed Pablo Castro, a 45-year-old store clerk in Corpus Christi, Texas. Fleeing the scene with a mere $1.25, Ramirez managed to evade law enforcement for 3 years before being apprehended near the Mexican border in 2007. Charged with capital murder in 2008, Ramirez faced the prospect of the death penalty. At the time of the crime, Ramirez was 22 years old and already had a criminal record, including convictions for aggravated assault, burglary, and indecent exposure. He was also suspected of additional crimes, such as a series of burglaries and another stabbing. Ramirez's trial encountered numerous legal challenges, leading to significant delays. Ultimately, in 2008, he was convicted and sentenced to death. During his time on death row, Ramirez experienced a spiritual transformation, finding solace in his faith and cultivating a profound bond with his pastor, Dana Moore. In a heartbreaking turn of events, in mid-2021, it was announced that Ramirez would face execution by lethal injection in September. Acknowledging the gravity of his crime and the need for retribution, Ramirez expressed a single request: that his pastor be permitted to lay hands on him and pray for him at the moment of his death. John Henry Ramirez's poignant appeal was rejected by the state, leading him to file a federal lawsuit in August. He argued that the denial of his request violated his constitutional right to religious freedom. In a significant ruling in March 2022, the Supreme Court sided with Ramirez, stating that the state's denial infringed upon his religious liberties. This ruling delayed his execution, granting him his desired request. However, despite the legal victory, Ramirez was eventually executed for his heinous crimes. The case highlighted the intricate dynamics between justice, religion, and individual liberties within the criminal justice system. Gene Hathorne, a deeply disturbing figure, found himself on death row for the brutal murder of 3 family members in October 1984. Alongside his accomplice James Lee Baythard, Gene orchestrated the attack on his father, Gene Sr., his mother, Linda, and their teenage son, Marcus. Their motive was to eliminate the family and inherit a substantial $150,000 property settlement. Unbeknownst to them, Gene Sr. had altered his will, disinheriting Gene Jr. In an attempt to divert suspicion away from himself, Gene scattered African American human hairs and cooled cigarette butts at the crime scene. However, thorough investigations ultimately exposed his culpability, leading to his arrest and subsequent capital murder charges. During the trial, Gene asserted that Baythard was solely responsible for the killings, claiming his own involvement was limited to firing a shot through a window. Baythard was found guilty, convicted, and ultimately executed, despite maintaining his innocence. Similarly, Gene was found guilty and sentenced to death, vehemently maintaining his own innocence and challenging the court's ruling through appeals. His defense attorneys argued that the trial in 1985 failed to consider the alleged history of abuse he suffered at the hands of his own father, which purportedly fueled his deep-seated resentment towards his family. However, it was Gene's final request that veered into the realm of macabre and disturbing. Gene, instead of seeking solace from his pastor, made an unsettling request to be transformed into fish food for an art project on capital punishment. He envisioned his frozen body being used in an exhibition where visitors would feed the fish with his remains. Surprisingly, Gene's appeal succeeded, and his sentence was commuted to 3 life terms in prison, rendering his disturbing request unnecessary. Despite the unsettling nature of his appeal, the outcome of Gene's case ensured that his macabre wish wasn't fulfilled. Frank Atwood, a convicted murderer, faced a solemn gathering as he prepared to meet his fate. Among those present were his wife and a Greek Orthodox priest who accompanied him into the execution chamber. Atwood's incarceration stemmed from the heinous crime committed in 1987 against 8-year-old Vicki Lynn Hoskinson. Arrested at the age of 28, Atwood was charged with first-degree murder for the kidnapping and subsequent killing of Vicky. His criminal activity included a prior conviction for sexually assaulting a 7-year-old boy in California in 1975. At the time, he was classified as a mentally disabled sex offender. During his trial, prosecutors sought the death penalty to the grave nature of his crime. However, Atwood maintained his innocence, leading to a trial presided over by Judge John Hawkins. Despite Atwood's claims, the judge found him guilty and issued an order for his execution to be carried out within 2 months. Due to a temporary suspension of executions in Arizona at that time, Atwood spent more than 3 decades on death row. This pause in executions followed an incident during the execution of another inmate where the administered dose of drugs proved ineffective, causing prolonged suffering before eventual death. Frank Atwood's disturbing request in his execution highlights the complex and contentious nature of capital punishment. Frank Atwood's execution was scheduled for June 8, 2022, after the state resolved dosage issues and legal concerns. Being convicted before 1992, Atwood had the choice between death by lethal injection or lethal gas. Disturbingly, he opted for death by lethal gas, but specifically requested nitrogen gas instead of cyanide gas. Despite his plea, the state didn't comply, and Atwood was executed at the age of 66. This case underscores the complex and contentious nature of capital punishment, emphasizing the importance of approaching such matters with professionalism and sensitivity despite the distressing crimes and legal proceedings involved. Thomas Douglas Arthur, an Alabama inmate, faced his final moments on May 25, 2017, convicted for the 1982 contract killing of Troy Wicker. Judy Wicker, Troy's wife, testified that she paid Arthur to carry out the murder. Despite admitting to another crime, Arthur vehemently maintained his innocence in Wicker's death. His defense argued that Judy falsely implicated him. Known as Houdini for escaping execution multiple times, Arthur had been on death row since 1983, making him the second longest serving inmate. After several overturned convictions, his 1991 conviction was upheld and he was executed on the seventh scheduled date in May 2017. Remarkably, the method by which Arthur sought to be executed added another layer of disturbance to the proceedings. Although he accepted his inevitable fate, he requested death by firing squad instead of lethal injection. Arthur, now 75 years old and confined to a wheelchair due to back injury, argued that lethal injection would subject him to heightened pain. Despite his plea, the court didn't grant his request. Consequently, on May 26, 2017, Thomas Douglas Arthur was executed in Alabama, marking the end of a prolonged legal saga. James Edward Smith, a convicted murderer from Kentucky, made headlines in 1990 with a fateful incident. Born on October 19, 1952, Smith's life took a dark turn after engaging in petty crimes. In March 1983, he attacked a teller at a Texas insurance company, fatally shooting Larry Don Rojas, an innocent district manager. Smith was swiftly apprehended with the help of office workers and citizens, and the stolen money was recovered. This tragic event defined Smith's notoriety and led to his conviction. Charged with capital murder, Smith faced a trial where he infamously attempted to escape from the courtroom only to be promptly captured. In 1984, he was found guilty and handed down a death sentence. Initially slated for execution on May 11, 1988, the legal process took a turn when Smith's mother appealed the ruling, claiming her son's mental incompetence. Consequently, the execution was postponed for 2 years. However, when another execution date was set, Smith, determined to evade further appeals, waived his right to them and expressed his preference for death over continued imprisonment, even suggesting a desire for reincarnation. In a perplexing twist, Smith's final request before his execution added to the intrigue surrounding his case. He sought red conda dirt as his last meal, citing his belief in voodoo rituals and the notion that consuming the soil would aid in his reincarnation. The state, deeming the request unconventional and outside the realm of approved meals, denied it. Ultimately, on June 26, 1990, James Edward Smith met his fate through lethal injection. These cases of individuals facing their ultimate fate through capital punishment reveal the complex and contentious nature of the legal system. From religious appeals to unsettling requests, they demonstrate the intricate dynamics between justice, personal beliefs, and the execution process, leaving a lasting impact on the discussion surrounding capital punishment. So, this brings us to the end of our video. Hope you enjoyed watching it, and if so, then please consider pressing the like button and don't forget to subscribe for more such videos like these. See you guys next time.